Well, just being first and foremost exposed to those incredibly beautiful and sacred places with regard to the Native American Canyon de Chelly, you know, Monument Valley. The film itself, you know, each time that you dive into a film, especially with an incredibly creative team, that you can toss things around and, you know, turn things inside out here and there during the scenes, and everyone's ready for it. That's kind of it's the most fun of making any film is the process. Everything else afterwards is sort of, I don't know, extra. But the process of making the film was an absolute gas. It was grueling for all of us. It was 1,000,000 degrees, but every day was an adventure, you know.
You know what? There was nothing I didn't love about this movie. In every way I can think of, it was the best experience that, I mean, greater than any experience I could ever hope for. You know, I got to work with Jerry Bruckheimer, Johnny Depp, Ruth Wilson, Gore Verbinski. I got to be sequestered in the desert for 7 months with a whole new family. The audience is going to pick up on that when they watch the movie. I think it's going to be a really fun experience for them as well.
About the various characters and a certain maybe monofilament that holds all these characters together, you know. I suppose if you saw or you felt Jack Sparrow in there, here's the thing people forget, I guess. It's the same entity. I mean, it all comes from my unfortunate brain. So if you recognize something of Jack Sparrow, then I think what you're seeing is me. If you recognize any other, I mean, all the characters, there's something, of course, in there. The basis of those characters is me, the truth that comes from me. So, no, I didn't feel like Tonto. I thought Tonto was the polar opposite of Jack Sparrow. As Gore said, Jack is a mover and a sort of manipulator and makes a situation happen more often than not and screws up. Tonto is more of an observer. Tonto is more, yeah, he's a little more, Tonto is more of a loner, more of a sort of a one-man band, if you will, you know, where Jack Sparrow needs others around him to manipulate, so he's not any good if he's alone. You know? Tonto's all right if alone. I'm afraid that's far too personal a question. All right, here's the truth. While these guys were in cowboy camp, I was bonding with the dead bird. That's all. Is that so wrong? Is that bond with dead birds or dead animals? I don't feel weird about it. Yeah, no, it was. I don't know. Playing the character, as any of these guys will tell you, once you put on that physical suit of skin of the character, and then obviously you decide to put a dead bird on top of your head. The character starts to breathe, the character starts to come to life, and you start to find mannerisms arrive that you weren't expecting necessarily because you've committed yourself to this character, and the character starts to tell you what it wants to be, where it wants to go. So, yeah, that was about it. Me and a dead bird. And then exposing the dead bird to Army. Not exposing myself to Army, the dead bird. Falling off a horse is probably right up there. Scariest, weirdest moment. I walked out of my trailer once and there were 9 policemen out there. It's quite a surprise. I didn't know why. They turned out to be jolly enough though, so it was okay. I really, you know, even falling off the horse, it wasn't, weirdly, I don't know why, you know, adrenaline did not kick in, fear did not, you know, panic did not, nothing, you know, took over. It was a quite irrational moment of, you know, really admiring the striations of muscle in the horse's leg and going, wow, that's really interesting. I'm sure there are hooves attached to that, which would maul me beyond recognition. So yeah, if there's anything, it's probably that, the horse thing. There were no clapping in my mouth. An actual scorpion. He didn't want to go in there. I think he was opposed to the cigarette smoke. But I can't be sure. He didn't say. Thanks, man.
Be careful.
Mein Vater ist ein Stierkämpfer. Ich bin ein Wassermelone. Ich bin voll mit Wanzenbissen. Ja. Ich brauche einen Affen. That's a tough one to get over, that one. When some, a lot of thought in there. A lot of things going on, you know what I mean? I just thought, I like to learn different things in different languages.
You know, I wish there was a really sort of poetic story about putting the mask and the hat on for the first time and the clouds parting and a rainbow coming down and it just, yes. But unfortunately, we were standing in an office building in Burbank, California, in an air-conditioned room. It was just cut out of like an old baseball glove or something like that. And I just remember putting it on, and it was just like the first, like, hey, just put this on so we can try on other stuff and all that. And I remember I put it on, and all of it just magically scrunched right into my eyes. I was just like, I don't really think this is gonna work. Cut to, you know, several iterations of the mask later, once we had the right mask, and once the hat was shaped perfectly, and that was a big discussion too, getting the right shape of the hat and all that. Once it was done, and once we had finally really nailed it, putting it on at that moment was great. But more importantly than that was, you know, if I'd walk out of my trailer dressed as John Reed, it'd be like, oh, Army, okay, come over here. You gotta go to this thing and all that. But you know, if you walk out as the Lone Ranger, especially a lot of the older gentlemen on the crew who sort of have a nostalgic remembrance of the Lone Ranger, it was kind of like everybody would get at first just like a little giddy, like, oh, Lone Ranger, look at you, Mel, that's just great, you know.
Absolutely. There's one major difficulty in horse riding, falling off. Staying on is great. Slow, fast is great. However, when a horse decides to, and they're quite, you know, they're pretty rambunctious and very smart beasts. When a horse decides to jump something while you're on it, the flying, when you come down on the, you know, the horse lands and your saddle thing kind of tilts to the left, it tends to take your body weight with it. And then you find yourself holding on to the side of a horse at great speed, which is confusing. But, I mean, it's an unusual place to be, and you realize that I'm either going to hold on until he kills me, or I'm going to have to make a decision to drop at some point, which is very random because there could be anything, a cactus or a rock or whatever. So I held on for as long as I could, and then I let go. And then I hit the deck, which is, again, the bad part of falling off a horse. But it was a very interesting experience, and I'll never forget it. There's a section of brain missing now, but they say it'll grow back. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I'd sat on a horse before, and I was lucky enough going into this project to have basically loaded up all the actors into a van and drove us out to a horse ranch in the middle of nowhere in New Mexico. Kicked us out and said, you know, we'll pick you up when you guys are cowboys. And then we just got, I mean, for all intents and purposes, the shit kicked out of us. And they made fun of us, and it was grueling, and we had blisters, but it was great. I mean, it really turned us all into cowboys and taught us to ride, taught us to throw lassos, taught us to work with bullwhips, you know, the gun stuff. It was, I mean, just a lot of older skills that, you know, now aren't very applicable. I can't really break a horse out in LA traffic, but, you know, it was still fun to do at the time.
No, okay. No, I was treated like the others, and I think I was actually better than Army to begin with. Definitely lassoing.
Yeah, probably lassoing, yeah.
But you soon took over. But no, it was great fun. Got to shoot guns and drive wagons, and I told Gore, I can drive a wagon. Can you please put it in the film? And we got it in. So there's a scene of me driving a wagon. My horse riding, I've fallen off a few horses in my past. I'm not very good with horses. But, yeah, so that wasn't me riding it backwards. That was someone else. That was the stunt lady. But it was great fun doing the cowboy count,
You don't have to say that. You can say you do all your own stunts.
I do all my own stunts, but not that one. Just that one, yeah, was beyond me.
Those are great questions. I've always had a kind of a fear of clowns, and I think what it is I don't know, maybe the way it manifests itself is me trying to hide in these characters that I play, which I think is important for an actor to do. Of what a clown represents is that, you know, the painted-on smile, and what always fascinated me was what was really going on behind the makeup, and what was going on underneath, you know, inside the man, you know, the clown's head, I suppose. So yeah, I always had this kind of fear of clowns. Still do, sort of. So please don't bring any around. I mean, you can if you want, but I'll just stay in the corner. And then what was the other part? Sorry. The Ranger
movies,
or any film
of your movies, exactly.
Between the
kids or journalists.
Between my children and the United States journalists. You know, we should talk about U.S. journalists sometime. We should talk about U.S. critics sometimes. They're a special breed. And to be quite honest, I couldn't give a rat's about U.S. journalists' opinions. What I do care about is my kids' opinions, and they loved it. They loved the rides, and they've been, maybe they're biased slightly, but for all intents and purposes, my kids were able to forget that it was Daddy 10 minutes, 5-10 minutes into the film, and they enjoyed the ride. The ride itself is incredible and unique, this film. So, yeah, I try.
Well, yeah, Silver's kind of Jack Benny. I mean, Silver is our sort of kind of operates in between the planes of the movie, and you know, it's you bury these guys to their heads and they work all day, and then Silver walks in and steals the show. I mean, it's then it's not the happiest moment. It's a great looking horse, and Johnny's scene at the grave scene with Johnny was pretty phenomenal. Just to see the two of them doing so much together, and Army relying on Silver in so many scenes. We were lucky to, getting him out of the trailer was a different. Carnivorous rabbits. I mean, that's just what's wrong. What? I don't understand the question.
We have him here too.
Yeah.
I mean, I was, from a very young age, back in Kentucky, we were always, I was lucky enough to know she was basically the older guy in the film was really, it was almost like I was playing my great-grandmother. That's what she looked like. She looked that intense. And so we grew up kind of knowing about some sliver of Indian blood. And it was something that I always was always very proud of, you know. However, you know, much maybe in there, you know, we're all sort of mutts at the end of the day, but more than feeling Native American, I feel very strongly that what happened to them and continues to happen on some level today, what happened to them is a piece of history that the history books like to sort of forget. You know, history is always written by the winners, isn't it? You know, but it's a passion. You know, it's something that I deeply care about. You know, that basically just because some Italian guy wandered on the shores, ignorant assumption that he had struck India, and it was the Americas, and called whatever, you know, he thought those people were Indians, throwing all our horror on them, you know. So it's a passion of mine. It's something I feel very strongly about. Well, there are some producers call themselves producers, and they couldn't produce an English muffin anywhere. Jerry is in the great tradition of real producers, people such as a dear friend who to a few of us who we lost last year, Richard Zanuck, was a producer. He protected the director. He protected the interests of the film. He stood tall and solid for the film, and that's what Jerry has done every time out of the gate. He stands tall. He's there every day, but also you know, a great sense of story, and he's a great asset to the creative process. That's a rare thing in Hollywood, because well, the snacks table becomes infinitely more important to most producers.
I think the same thing. I think we all want somebody to ride in with a white horse and a white hat and, you know, save us from things we don't want to deal with. I think everybody kind of wants that kind of feeling when somebody takes the pressure off of you or rights the wrongs that have been done to you, and that's the Lone Ranger and Tonto. That's what they do.